Kobe Bryant sent a letter to a fan battling cancer, but it arrived the day after he passed. Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today, and if you like this story, don't forget to subscribe. The sun poured through the tall hospital windows, casting long streaks of light across the polished linoleum floor. Nurses moved like clockwork through the halls, pushing carts, checking charts, speaking softly. In room 412, Jace Hamilton sat up in bed, his legs covered in a blanket, and his eyes locked onto the television mounted in the corner. Kobe Bryant highlights flickered across the screen. Crossovers, dunks, game winners. Jace knew them all by heart. He mouthed the words of Kobe's voiceover from a commercial clip. The most important thing is to try and inspire people so they can be great in whatever they want to do. Jace said it like a prayer. His mom, Angela, quietly folded laundry in the corner of the room, glancing up now and then to check on her son. She'd been living out of that hospital room for nearly 6 weeks. The framed photo of Jace's middle school team sat on the nightstand. He was the point guard back then, always smiling, always running. "You want anything from the cafeteria, Jay?" she asked, folding his hoodie. Jay shook his head. His voice had gone softer over the last week. The treatments had left him tired and thinner. But the fire in his eyes, the part that wanted to fight, still burned, dim but alive. There was a knock at the door. Nurse Beth popped her head in, holding a clipboard in one hand and a bright smile on her face. "Morning, champ." "Vitals time," she said, walking in. She always called him that. Jace forced a grin. While she checked his blood pressure, she looked over at the TV. "Still watching your man Kobe, huh?" "He's the greatest," Jace said. Beth nodded. "You know, I think he'd be proud of how you're pushing through this. You got that Mamba mindset, kid." Jace didn't answer right away. He looked out the window. "I wish he knew I existed." Angela stood and rubbed his shoulder. He might someday. But deep down, Jace wasn't sure he had a someday. Later that afternoon, Coach Ellis, his old school coach and longtime family friend, stopped by with a bag of snacks and a basketball magazine. He stayed for an hour, talking about the Lakers, March Madness, and how he'd emailed someone in the Lakers front office to tell them about Jace's story. "Don't get your hopes up," he said. "But I figured it was worth a shot." Jace nodded. He didn't say much, just flipped through the magazine. He stopped on a full-page shot of Kobe wearing his number 24, arms raised after a buzzer beater. "I wore 24 because of him," Jace said quietly. "I remember," Ellis replied, his voice catching for a second. "You played like it mattered." Angela watched them from the side, the way a mother watches a moment she knows might not come again. She wasn't naive, she read the charts, saw the doctors' faces. Jace's leukemia wasn't responding the way they'd hoped. But she couldn't let him see that fear. The next morning, something changed. A FedEx envelope was delivered to the hospital's front desk, addressed in black marker to Jace Hamilton. The nurse on duty brought it up with his breakfast tray. "What's this?" Angela asked. Jace stared at it. There was no return address, but the handwriting was unmistakable. The signature on the bottom corner read simply, KB. Jace froze. Angela picked it up gently. "Jace, I think this might be from." "I know," he whispered. His heart was pounding in his chest. His hands trembled. He didn't move to open it. Angela handed it to him. Jace took it in both hands. The envelope was thick, heavier than a card. His fingers ran along the edge but didn't tear. He held it against his chest instead. "Maybe later," he said. Angela nodded, not pushing. Hours passed. The envelope sat unopened on the nightstand. That night, everything changed. The TV cut in with breaking news. Helicopter crash. Calabasas. No survivors. Kobe Bryant. Gone. Angela turned the volume up. The hospital room was silent except for the newscaster's voice. Jace didn't blink. He looked at the screen, then at the envelope. Then back at the screen. No, he said. No. That's wrong. He just sent this. Angela sat next to him, wrapping her arm around his shoulders, but he shook it off. It doesn't make sense. He just wrote me. But the report was confirmed. Kobe, his daughter, and 7 others, gone. Jace didn't cry. He just stared. Then, without saying a word, he placed the envelope back on the nightstand. He didn't touch it again. The days that followed felt hollow. The hospital staff tried to stay upbeat, but the grief lingered. Jace became quieter, more distant. He stopped watching the highlights. He didn't ask about the Lakers. His physical therapy appointments, once something he attacked with focus, were now optional. And he opted out. He stopped pushing himself. Even meals started going unfinished. Angela pleaded. Baby, I know this hurts, but he wouldn't want you to quit. Jace turned away. Doesn't matter what he wanted. He's not here. Coach Ellis returned, tried to cheer him up, even brought a signed basketball. It didn't help. One afternoon, Beth came in and found Angela wiping her eyes, sitting by the window. The envelope still sat there, sealed, untouched. Beth looked at Jace. You know, she said gently, it might help. Reading it. He wrote it for you. Jace didn't respond. He looked small in the bed, smaller than a boy who used to run full-court drills every weekend. That night, Angela stood by the nightstand. Her hands hovered over the envelope. She didn't open it. Instead, she walked to the hospital gift shop the next morning and came back with a simple glass frame. She placed the envelope inside and set it on the shelf above Jace's bed. It's not just a letter, she told him. It's proof he knew. He heard about you. He cared. Jace looked at the framed envelope, then looked away. I'm tired, Mom, he said. I'm just tired. Angela kissed his forehead. She wanted to scream. She wanted to punch a wall, curse the sky, rip that letter open and read it for him. But she didn't. She just stayed. The next day, as she sat by the bed with coffee in hand and tears in her eyes, she whispered to herself, Please, Kobe. Help him hold on. Outside the room, a grizzled older man in a gray hoodie leaned against the wall. He watched the nurses pass, the families coming and going. He held a basketball under one arm and a clipboard under the other. His name was Coach Ray, and he had one goal left in life, to help one more kid stand again. He looked at the room number. Room 412. The next morning, Coach Ray walked into the hospital room like he owned the place. No hesitation. Just purpose. He nodded at Angela and held out his hand. Coach Ray Thomas, he said. I heard there's a hooper in here who needs a teammate. Angela raised an eyebrow. From who? Old friend down at the youth league, he said, motioning toward the hallway. He told me there's a boy who used to be lightning with a crossover, now stuck in bed. That true? Jace looked up from his blanket, unimpressed. Used to be. Ray grinned. Funny thing about used to be, it's never final unless you let it be. Angela stepped in, unsure. We've had a lot of visitors lately. Jace is tired. Understood, Ray said. He turned to Jace. I'll be down in the courtyard at 2. Little half-court set up outside. Just watching if you want to roll out. Or not. Up to you, kid. He left just like that. No preaching. No promises. Just left his card on the tray and strolled out like it wasn't life or death. Jace didn't move. At 2:15, he peeked through the window blinds. Below, on the makeshift court, Coach Ray was alone, bouncing a ball lazily. Then he sat in a folding chair and waited. He showed up again the next day. And the next. Rain or shine, Ray was out there. Some days with a ball. Some days just sitting. No lectures. On the fourth day, Nurse Beth wheeled in a chair and parked it next to the bed. "You're allowed out," she said. 10 minutes max. If you want. Angela stayed silent. She didn't push. She knew better. Jace didn't say a word. But the next afternoon, at 2:05, he was in that chair with a blanket over his legs, holding a basketball on his lap as Beth rolled him outside. Coach Ray stood up like he'd won a championship. About time. They didn't shoot. Not at first. They just talked. About ball. About life. About nothing. "I coached AAU for 30 years, Ray said. Saw a lot of kids come and go. Some made it. Most didn't. But the ones who fought, really fought, those are the ones I remember." Jace nodded, but quietly. Still guarded. "Let me guess," Ray said. "You wanted to go D1. "Yeah," Jace said. "North Carolina. Wanted to wear blue like Vince." Ray grinned. "Ambitious. You know what Vince Carter did that made him different? Jump out the gym? Nope. He stayed hungry when the game wasn't watching. Practice gym. Weight room. Late nights. It wasn't for cameras, it was just who he was." That stuck with Jace. He didn't reply, but it landed. Over the next week, Jace came out more often. At first just to sit. Then to pass. Then a few dribbles. Coach Ray didn't rush him. He waited for the fire to catch. One afternoon, Ray rolled a chair to the top of the key and held the ball. "You ready?" "For what?" "To shoot." Jace hesitated. "I can't even stand." "You can still shoot." Ray passed him the ball. Jace caught it. Palmed it. Lifted. It bounced off the rim. "Again," Ray said. The second one kissed the backboard. The third? Nothing but net. Ray clapped once. "There's the touch." Each day after, Jace took more shots. 2. Then 5. Then 10. Angela started joining them. She smiled more now, even laughed sometimes. The nurses stood by the window to watch. The doctors noticed, too. "His numbers aren't better," one of them whispered to Angela. "But his spirit is." One day, Coach Ray brought out a faded photo album. Inside were Polaroids of kids with casts, braces, wheelchairs, all holding basketballs, all smiling. "Every one of them fought," Ray said. "Some are still here. Some aren't. But they never let the game go." Jace flipped through the pages. He stopped on one. "Who's this kid?" "Derek," Ray said. "Cancer hit him hard. But he trained every day anyway. We built a ramp just so he could shoot without leaving his chair. You remind me of him." "Where's he now?" Ray took a long breath. "Gone. But not forgotten." "His last words?" "Tell the court I said thank you." Jace didn't say anything. But the next time he shot, he made it count. That night, Jace asked Angela to hand him the notebook on the counter. He wrote 5 things in it. Quietly. Slowly. Play again. Walk. Breathe deep. Win something. Open the letter. He didn't tell her what it was. The envelope still sat above the bed in its frame. Untouched. Unread. But not forgotten. A week later, the hospital announced a charity event. A 3v3 tournament in the courtyard. Staff, patients, guests. All welcome. Coach Ray signed Jace up without asking. "I can't run," Jace said. "You can pass. You can shoot. That's enough." Angela wasn't so sure. "His body's still weak," she told the doctor. "If he wants to play, let him," the doctor replied. "We'll have a nurse nearby. And he'll be in a chair. No full contact." Angela looked at Jace. "Are you sure about this?" He didn't flinch. If it's my last game, I want to play it. The night before the tournament, Jace stared at the letter on the wall for a long time. Then turned to Coach Ray, who dropped by for one last talk. You think I should read it before tomorrow? Ray looked him straight in the eye. No, he said. Save it for after. Why? Because that letter doesn't define you. You define the letter. Jace didn't sleep much that night. He lay awake, imagining the ball leaving his hand, flying clean through the net. In the morning, he suited up. Kobe's jersey. Arm sleeve. His old sneakers, now 2 sizes too big. Coach Ray helped tape his wrist. Just one shot, he said. Make it count. Angela kissed his forehead. Play your game, baby. At 2 p.m., the courtyard was packed. Patients in gowns, nurses in uniforms, doctors in scrubs, all standing around the court. The game started slow. 2 passes. A missed layup. Laughter. Then the ball came to Jace at the elbow. He turned. Lifted. The crowd held its breath. The ball arced, perfect. Net. Jace raised his fist in the air. Not for show, just because he was alive. Coach Ray clapped once. Angela cried quietly. And the letter? It still waited. The day after the 3v3 game, Jace was the talk of the entire hospital. Nurses were still buzzing, doctors smiling a little more, and even patients in other wings heard about the shot. The kid who couldn't walk had nailed a clean fadeaway in front of everyone. The video was already making its way through the staff's group chats. One doctor even played it back during morning rounds. Jace sat up straighter that morning, sipping from his orange Gatorade like he was back on the bench at a tournament. He felt alive again, like his old self, if only for a minute. Coach Ray walked in with a bag of ice and a banana. Post-game breakfast, he said, tossing the ice pack to Jace. You're a little banged up. Jace pressed the pack to his shoulder. Worth it. You had decent form, Ray added, sitting down. A little stiff, but that follow-through? Kobe would have nodded. Jace grinned. Angela entered moments later, holding a folded sheet of paper. Coach, someone from the paper wants to do a piece on the tournament, she said. They want to feature Jace's story. Coach Ray raised an eyebrow. What do you think, champ? Jace hesitated. I don't know. I didn't do it for attention. Angela gave him a soft look. Then do it for the next kid like you. Someone sitting in bed right now thinking it's over. Jace didn't say no. Later that day, a local reporter named Danny came by with a camera and recorder. He asked simple questions, how it felt to play again, what basketball meant to him, how he stayed motivated. But then he asked the question Jace hadn't expected. I heard Kobe wrote you a letter. Angela froze. Coach Ray looked at Jace. Is that true? Danny asked. Did you ever read it? Jace stared at the envelope on the shelf. He took a slow breath. It's real, he said. But I haven't opened it. Danny blinked. Why not? Jace thought for a moment. Because, once I read it, it's over. And right now, it's still a maybe. It still feels like he's out there. Danny didn't push. He nodded respectfully and turned off the recorder. The article came out 3 days later. The headline, The Kid Who Hit One More Shot, a fadeaway for Kobe. A printed copy was taped up in the hallway outside Jace's room. That same day, a package arrived from Los Angeles. Inside were a pair of worn Nike Kobe shoes, signed, and a short note from Vanessa Bryant. Angela read it aloud. Dear Jace, Kobe loved writing back to young people who believed in the Mamba mentality. Thank you for honoring his legacy with your heart, strength, and shot. With love, Vanessa Bryant. Jace held the shoes in his lap like a trophy. For a long while, he didn't speak. He just looked down at the signature, the scuffs on the soles, the way the laces were still tied. Coach Ray leaned on the wall, arms crossed. You got his respect, kid. Doesn't get better than that. But even with the media buzz and sudden attention, Jace's body was beginning to give up. His blood counts dropped. He spiked a fever. The energy that returned after the game began slipping away again, slowly but clearly. The doctors gave updates in hushed tones. Angela started sleeping in a chair beside the bed again. Coach Ray stayed longer, talking less. One afternoon, Jace woke up coughing hard. The nurse came in, adjusted his oxygen, and wiped his forehead. Angela sat by his side, holding his hand. We're still in this. Don't you quit on me. Jace nodded, but the spark in his eyes was dimmer. He looked at the letter. Then back at his mom. Can I ask you something? He whispered. Anything. If I go, will you read it for me? Angela bit her lip. Baby, don't talk like that. I'm not giving up, he said. I just want to know someone will hear it. Angela squeezed his hand. I promise. But not yet. That night, the envelope fell from its frame during a shift change. It slid off the shelf and landed beside Jace's bed. He picked it up. For the first time, he ran his finger along the seal, feeling the faint texture of where it was glued. He didn't open it. Instead, he placed it on his lap and stared out the window. The city lights blinked in the distance. Somewhere out there, a court was still being swept for tomorrow's game. Somewhere, kids were still running drills. He closed his eyes. The next morning, the hospital hosted a small ceremony in the courtyard. They presented Jace with a plaque, recognizing his courage, his shot, and his spirit. They called it the Mamba Moment Award. Jace didn't say much. He just smiled and held it up. A few hours later, while Jace rested, Coach Ray sat with Angela in the hallway. He's fading, she said. I can feel it. Ray nodded. But he's not broken. You gave him that. Angela wiped her eyes. I wanted to give him the world. I'd trade places with him if I could. Ray put a hand on her shoulder. You already did. Every step, every moment, you carried him. Inside the room, Jay stirred. He opened his eyes and looked around. The letter was still in his lap. This time, he reached for it. But his hand shook too much. Angela came in and noticed. She walked over, kneeled beside him, and held his hands in hers. You want me to open it? She asked. Jace nodded once. Angela looked at him, waiting. You sure? He took a breath. Yeah. I'm ready. She carefully tore the seal, slid out the paper, and began to read aloud. Dear Jace, I heard about your fight. I want you to know, you're not alone. I've seen a lot of people quit before the buzzer. But something tells me you're not one of them. There's pain in every game. But there's also beauty. Even when the clock's running out, you still get to choose how you play. I hope you shoot your shot. Every time. Because greatness doesn't come from living long. It comes from living real. Stay strong. Stay hungry. And if you ever feel like giving up, don't. You've already made it. Much love. Kobe. Jace's lips parted slightly. His eyes filled, but no tears fell. Did he really write that? He whispered. Angela nodded, brushing his hair back. Then I'm good, he said. I'm really good. He leaned back into his pillow, the letter resting on his chest. And for the first time in weeks, he slept without a frown. The days that followed were quieter. Jace slept more. His body needed it. The hospital room, once filled with noise from basketball clips and constant visitors, now echoed mostly with the sound of machines and the soft shuffle of nurses coming and going. Angela stayed by his side every moment she could. Sometimes reading. Sometimes praying. Sometimes just sitting there, watching him breathe. The letter, now folded and smoothed out, was taped beside the hospital bed where Jace could see it when he woke up. Coach Ray stopped by every day too. He didn't come to coach anymore. He just sat and talked. One afternoon, Jace was awake, staring at the ceiling. "I keep thinking about that shot," he said. Ray leaned back in the chair. "You mean the one you made?" "Yeah. You nailed it, kid." It felt like everything went still, like it was the only thing that mattered. "It was," Ray said. "In that moment, that shot was the world. You gave everyone something they'll never forget." Jace looked at him. "But I didn't do anything special." Ray leaned forward. "That's where you're wrong. You played when the world said you couldn't. You smiled when pain tried to steal your joy. You reminded people what hard looks like." Jace blinked slowly. "But I'm still gonna lose." Ray paused. "No, you're not. You already won. Winning doesn't always look the way we expect it to." Jace didn't reply, but his chest rose a little fuller with breath. Later that evening, Angela stepped outside the room for a few minutes. In the hallway, the head nurse was waiting. "We need to talk," she said gently. "Jace's condition is progressing faster now." Angela nodded slowly, already knowing. "We're going to do everything we can to keep him comfortable. But this next week will be hard." Angela wiped a tear before it could fall. "I've been preparing." "But you never really prepare." "No," the nurse said softly. "You just love. That's the part that matters." Angela went back into the room and sat down beside Jace. He was half asleep but opened his eyes when he felt her near. "Mom," he said weakly, "can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Will you still talk about me when I'm gone?" She blinked through a sting of tears. "Every single day." "You'll never be gone, baby." "Not really." Jace gave a small nod, eyes fluttering shut again. The next morning, the hospital arranged something special. The staff rolled a TV into the room and connected it to a live Zoom call. A former Laker, now retired, had heard about Jace's story. He wanted to say hello. When the screen lit up, Jace opened his eyes slowly. "Hey there, young man," the player said. "Heard you've got one of the cleanest fadeaways since number 24. Jace smiled faintly. "Not that clean." They spoke for a few minutes. About basketball. About courage. About life. The player told him Kobe would have been proud, man. Real proud. As the screen faded out, Jace whispered, "Thanks." It meant the world to him. The world had gotten smaller, but moments like this kept it bright. That evening, Angela stood alone by the window. She watched the wind move the tree branches. The sky had turned a soft orange. Coach Ray came in quietly. "He awake?" he asked. "Just barely." Ray stepped closer. "I was thinking, maybe it's time we gave him one more game." Angela turned. "How?" Ray looked down. "Just a hoop. One shot. Even if it's just us holding the ball. Doesn't have to count for the world, just for him." Angela nodded. "Let's do it." The next afternoon, with help from hospital staff, they moved Jace's bed into the courtyard. The same one where he made the fadeaway. This time, there was no crowd. Just Angela. Coach Ray. A nurse. And the breeze. They'd set up a portable hoop again. Lowered, just enough. Jace was wheeled out in his bed, barely conscious but awake. His eyes moved slowly, but he saw the court. A small smile crept across his face. "Back where it started," he whispered. Angela held his hand. "You ready?" Jace nodded weakly. Coach Ray placed the basketball in his hands, then gently helped guide his arms upward. With their support, Jace lifted the ball one more time. He pushed with everything left in him. It wasn't graceful. It wasn't fast. But the ball left his fingers, rose in the air, and kissed the front of the rim. It dropped through. Swish. Jace let out a breath that sounded like peace. Angela cried quietly, holding his hand tighter. Coach Ray wiped his eyes. That's it. That's the one. They wheeled him back into the room. Jace was quiet but calm. Resting. That night, as the stars blinked into the sky, Jace whispered something to his mom. Do you think he saw that? Angela leaned in. Who? Kobe. She smiled. I think he did. Jace smiled back. And then, for the last time, he closed his eyes. 3 days later, the hospital was quiet. Room 412 was empty now. The bed stripped. The walls bare. But taped to the window, left behind on purpose, was the letter from Kobe, no longer in its frame, just gently folded, words showing. Nurses passed the room slower than usual. Some stopped, took a moment, read the first line, and kept walking. Angela sat in the chapel downstairs. Alone, holding a copy of the letter in her lap. Her eyes were red but dry now. She wasn't crying anymore. She'd cried enough. She sat still for a long while, letting the silence wrap around her. She wasn't lost, just waiting. Like something in her needed to settle before she moved again. Coach Ray arrived quietly, nodding at a nurse as he walked in. He spotted Angela and sat beside her. Neither said a word for a moment. They called me this morning, he finally said. Said Jace's name is going up in the gym at his old middle school. Angela nodded slowly. He would have liked that. They're naming a scholarship after him too, Ray added. One for kids who don't quit. Angela looked down at her hands. He never did he? No, Ray said. Not once. A short silence followed, comfortable this time. You think he really knew what that shot meant? She asked. Ray leaned back. He knew. That's why he smiled after. He wasn't playing for survival anymore. He was playing for legacy. Big difference. Angela smiled faintly. I used to worry he'd never get the chance to leave his mark. He did, Ray said. That shot? That letter? That courage? It's more than most of us leave behind. The memorial service was small. Just family, close friends, hospital staff, and a few local kids who'd seen Jace play in his better days. They held it in the courtyard where he'd taken his last shot. The same net still hung there, frayed slightly, but still strong. Angela stepped up and spoke first. My son didn't get to grow old. He didn't get to play college ball, or sign a deal, or hear his name announced in a packed gym. But he got something a lot of people never find. Purpose. She held up the letter. This gave him strength. But he didn't wait on it. He lived like it had already arrived. She folded the paper slowly and placed it in a shadow box on a small table. He never read it until the end. But he lived by it every single day. Coach Ray spoke next. He didn't prepare anything. He never did. Jace taught me more in 2 months than I learned in 30 years of coaching. He didn't need drills. He didn't need trophies. He just needed a ball and a reason. He looked around. I coached a lot of winners. But Jace? He played the most important game there is. The one where your opponent is life. And he played it like a champion. After the service, people lined up to touch the letter, to look at the jersey framed beside it, number 24 with Jace's name stitched across the back in small letters. Some cried. Some smiled. All of them remembered. Weeks passed. Life moved on in the way it always does, whether we want it to or not. But one thing didn't change. Room 412 became something of a legend among the new patients. Kids asked about the boy who took the last shot. Nurses told the story with reverence. Every time a new child came in scared or angry, someone would bring up Jace and what he did. And down in the rehab wing, they renamed the small basketball court the Jace Hamilton Court. There was no plaque with a speech or quote. Just his name. Because that was enough. Angela returned a month later. Not to mourn. Just to visit. She brought a new basketball and left it beside the court. She sat in the stands and watched a few kids play. A boy in crutches shot from the corner and made it. His teammates cheered. Angela smiled, quietly wiping her eyes. Then she walked into the hospital library, found a blank notebook, and began writing. She wrote down everything: how Jace fought, how he smiled, how he found strength from a letter that hadn't even been opened. She wrote about Coach Ray. About the last shot. About the crowd. About the silence afterward. And finally, she wrote one more line. You don't beat life by lasting the longest. You beat it by playing it with everything you've got. The last entry in that notebook was a quote from Kobe's letter. Even when the clock's running out, you still get to choose how you play. That notebook stayed in the hospital library. The letter stayed in its shadow box. The shot? That shot echoed. Not just in that courtyard or in the memories of those who saw it, but in every story told by every parent who needed hope, every coach who needed purpose, and every kid who needed proof that you didn't have to live forever to matter. Jace Hamilton didn't become a star in the NBA. But he became something more. He became a reason. A reminder. And the boy who never opened his letter in time? He still heard every word. He still made every moment count. And somewhere, in some corner of heaven's court, a certain number 24 probably nodded and said, "That's my kind of player." The game ended. But the story never will.